The first time I saw Marcus Cole, I sent him to prison. I was 22 years old, fresh out of college, working my first real job at a law firm downtown. It was a Tuesday night, late, and I was walking to my car in the parking garage when I heard the sounds. A struggle, a grunt of pain, the unmistakable thud of a body hitting concrete. I should have run. I should have called 911 and stayed hidden behind the pillar where I'd frozen. But something made me look. Something made me need to see. 2 men. One on the ground, bleeding. One standing over him, fists clenched, breathing hard. The standing man looked up. Our eyes met across the dim garage, and in that moment, his face burned itself into my memory. Dark hair, sharp jaw, eyes that seemed to glow in the fluorescent light. Then he ran. I did call 911. I gave my statement. I described the man I'd seen. Every detail my traumatized brain could conjure. And when they showed me a photo lineup 2 days later, I pointed, without hesitation. That's him. That's the man I saw. Marcus Cole, 26 years old. No prior record, but he'd been seen arguing with the victim earlier that day. Motive, opportunity, and now an eyewitness placing him at the scene. The defense attorney tried to shake me on the stand, tried to make me admit that the garage was dark, that I was scared, that I might have made a mistake. But I was certain. I was absolutely certain. That's the man, I said, pointing at Marcus Cole where he sat at the defendant's table. I'll never forget his face. I didn't see the way his expression crumpled when I pointed. I didn't see the way his mother sobbed in the gallery. I didn't see any of it, because I was so focused on doing the right thing, on getting justice for the man who had died in that parking garage. Marcus Cole was convicted of second-degree murder, 8 years in prison. The real killer was caught 4 years later. A man named Dennis Webb, a serial violent offender, confessed to the parking garage murder as part of a plea deal for other crimes. DNA evidence confirmed it. Marcus Cole's conviction was overturned. He was released after serving 6 years for a crime he didn't commit. And I was the one who put him there. I followed the news obsessively. The wrongful conviction. The investigation into what went wrong. The articles about how eyewitness testimony is notoriously unreliable. How stress and fear can distort memory. How the brain fills in gaps with false certainty. I learned that Marcus Cole had lost everything. His fiancée left him. His mother died while he was incarcerated, and he wasn't allowed to attend the funeral. His career, his future, his entire life. Gone. Because of 4 words from a scared woman in a parking garage. I tried to reach out once, after his release. Wrote a letter that I never sent. What could I possibly say? Sorry I destroyed your life based on a mistaken memory. Sorry I was so certain about something I was completely wrong about. There were no words, so I said nothing. I buried my guilt and moved on with my life, got promoted at the firm, made partner, built a career defending people accused of crimes, perhaps trying to atone in some small way for the injustice I had caused. I told myself that Marcus Cole had probably moved on, too. That he had rebuilt his life somewhere far away from me in the courtroom where I had condemned him. I told myself a lot of things. The stalking started 3 months ago. At first, it was subtle. A feeling of being watched. A car that seemed to follow me home more than once. Flowers delivered to my office with no card. Then it escalated. Photos of me appeared in my mailbox. Photos taken through my windows, in parking lots, at the gym. Close-ups of my face, my hands, my feet. Each one more invasive than the last. The notes started after that. Typed, anonymous, terrifying. I see you everywhere. You can't hide from what you did. Soon. I went to the police, but without clear evidence of who was sending them, there was little they could do. I installed security cameras, changed my locks, varied my routine. Nothing helped. Whoever was watching me knew my schedule better than I did. My father, a wealthy real estate developer who had never quite approved of my career choices but loved me fiercely nonetheless, insisted on hiring private security. "The best," he said. "I don't care what it costs. Someone is going to watch over you until this psychopath is caught." I agreed. I was too scared to argue. The security company sent their top operative. Former military, they said. Impeccable record. The best in the business at personal protection. I didn't ask for a name. I didn't ask for a background. I just waited in my apartment for my new shadow to arrive, hoping that professional protection would finally let me sleep through the night. When the knock came, I opened the door expecting a stranger. Instead, I saw a ghost. He was older now, harder. The boyish softness I remembered from the courtroom had been carved away by 6 years in prison, replaced by sharp angles and lean muscle. There was a small scar near his left eyebrow that hadn't been there before. His eyes, which had seemed to glow with desperate innocence in that parking garage, were now flat and cold. But it was him. There was no mistaking it. I had sworn under oath that I would never forget his face, and I hadn't. Marcus Cole was standing in my doorway. "You," I whispered. "Me." His voice was deeper than I remembered, rougher. Seems like fate has a sense of humor. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. My brain was short-circuiting, trying to reconcile the man I had sent to prison with the man who was supposedly here to protect me. This isn't. There must be some mistake. No mistake. He stepped past me into the apartment without waiting to be invited, his eyes sweeping the space with professional assessment. "Your father hired my company. They assigned me. I considered turning it down." He turned to face me, and something flickered in those cold eyes. But then I thought, why would I pass up an opportunity like this? An opportunity for what? He smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. To watch you, Ms. Ashford. The way you watched me. To know every detail of your life, your routines, your fears. He stepped closer, and I stepped back instinctively until my spine hit the wall. You spent 5 minutes on a witness stand, and took 6 years of my life. I figure the least you owe me is the chance to spend some time in your world. If you're here for revenge, if I wanted revenge, you'd already be dead." He said it casually, matter-of-factly, like he was commenting on the weather. "I've had 4 years since my release to Planet, if that's what I wanted. I don't. What I want is answers." Answers? Why? The word cracked through the air between us. Why were you so certain? Why didn't you have even a moment of doubt? Why did you look at me, an innocent man, and see a killer? I had asked myself the same questions 1,000 times. I still didn't have a good answer. I thought I saw... You thought wrong. He cut me off sharply. And because you thought wrong, I lost everything. My career, my fiancé, my mother. His voice fractured on the last word before he controlled it again. She died thinking her son was a murderer. She died, ashamed of me. Because of you. Tears were streaming down my face now. I'm sorry. I know it doesn't mean anything, but I am so sorry. I was scared and I was young and I was so sure. Your surety cost me 6 years in a cage." He leaned in, his face inches from mine, and I could see the full weight of his pain for the first time. "Do you have any idea what that's like? What it does to a person? To be locked in a concrete box for something you didn't do, knowing that the real killer is out there, knowing that no one believes you." "No, I can't imagine." "No, you can't." He pulled back abruptly, putting distance between us, and the cold mask slammed down over his features again. "But you're going to learn what it feels like to be watched, to be followed, to have someone know your every move. Because that's what I'm being paid to do. And I always do my job." He walked toward the guest room where he would apparently be staying, then paused at the doorway. "For what it's worth," he said without turning around, "I don't think you're a bad person. I think you were a scared witness who made a mistake. That's what the psychologists told me when I was trying to make sense of it all. That eyewitness misidentification is incredibly common. That it wasn't malicious. It wasn't. I swear to you, I thought. I know." Now he did turn, and for just a moment, I saw something other than anger in his eyes, something that looked almost like exhaustion. "That's the worst part. You genuinely believed you were doing the right thing, and I still lost everything." He disappeared into the guest room, and I stood there alone in my living room, tears still streaming, wondering how my life had become this impossible nightmare. The man I sent to prison was now the only thing standing between me and whoever was trying to destroy me, and I had no idea if I could trust him. The first week was unbearable. Marcus was professional to a fault. He checked my security systems, installed additional cameras, mapped out escape routes, and established protocols for every possible scenario. He drove me to work and picked me up. He scanned every room before I entered, and positioned himself between me and any potential threat. He was, by all accounts, excellent at his job. He was also completely silent, unless absolutely necessary. We existed in the same space like strangers. Worse than strangers, because at least strangers don't have 6 years of injustice hanging between them. He slept in my guest room with the door open so he could hear any disturbance. He ate meals standing up, always watching the windows. He never relaxed, never let his guard down, never showed any emotion except occasional flashes of that cold anger. I tried to apologize again. Multiple times. He shut me down every time. "I'm not here for your conscience, Ms. Ashford. I'm here to keep you alive. Save your apologies for someone who cares." But there were moments, small, fleeting moments, when I caught him looking at me with something other than contempt. When I woke from a nightmare about the stalker and found him standing in my doorway, checking that I was safe, his expression almost soft in the darkness. When I received a particularly vicious note, and my hands shook so badly I couldn't hold my coffee, and he gently took the mug from me without a word. He hated me. I was certain of that. But he was also protecting me with an intensity that went beyond professional obligation. The break came on a Thursday night, 2 weeks into our arrangement. I couldn't sleep. The latest note had been worse than the others. Detailed descriptions of what the stalker wanted to do to me. Locations that proved he had been inside my building. The police were taking it more seriously now, but that only made me more afraid. I wandered into the kitchen for water and found Marcus there, standing at the window in the darkness, looking out at the city lights. "You should be sleeping," he said without turning around. "So should you." "I don't sleep much anymore." He took a drink of something, whiskey from the smell. Prison does that to you. Conditions you to stay alert. Hard to shake even after 4 years. I moved to stand beside him, keeping a careful distance. Can I ask you something? You can ask. Why did you take this job? Really? You could have refused. You could have sent someone else. Why put yourself through this? He was silent for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then quietly, because I needed to know. Know what? If you were the monster I'd built in my head. He finally looked at me, and his eyes were tired instead of cold. For 6 years I imagined you, the woman who destroyed my life. I imagined you as evil, calculating, someone who knew I was innocent and sent me away anyway. I needed to see the real you, to understand who you actually were. And what did you find? A scared woman who made a terrible mistake and has been punishing herself for it ever since. He laughed bitterly. It's harder to hate you when you're human. Trust me, I've tried. I don't want you to hate me. What do you want? The question hung between us, heavy with implications. I swallowed hard. I want you to know that I think about it every day. What I did. What it cost you. I became a defense attorney because of you. Because I wanted to make sure no one else ever went through what you went through because of a flawed system. I've helped overturn 11 wrongful convictions. It doesn't make up for yours. Nothing ever could. But I've tried. I know. I blinked. You know. I looked you up after I got out. He turned to face me fully. I know about every case you've worked. Every innocent person you've freed. Every reform you've advocated for. He paused. You've done more for criminal justice reform than most people do in a lifetime. It doesn't erase what happened to me, but it matters. Marcus. I reached out without thinking, my hand landing on his arm. He went rigid at the contact. For a moment I thought he would pull away. Instead, he looked down at my hand, then back up at my face, and something cracked in his expression. I've spent 10 years hating you, he said roughly. 6 in prison, 4 out. You were the villain of my story. The face I saw every time something went wrong. And now you're standing here in your kitchen, touching me like I'm not a monster, apologizing like it might actually mean something. It does mean something. I know it can't fix. It can't fix anything. He stepped closer, and suddenly we were inches apart, his breath warm on my face. But I'm starting to think maybe I don't want to hate you anymore, and I don't know what to do with that. What do you want to do? He looked at me for a long moment, something burning in his eyes that wasn't anger. Then he stepped back abruptly, breaking the spell. I want to keep you alive. That's my job. The rest... He shook his head. The rest is too complicated to think about right now. He walked back to the guest room and closed the door, and I stood alone in the kitchen, my heart pounding, wondering what had just almost happened between us. The stalker made his move 3 days later. I was leaving the office late, Marcus walking beside me as always, when the shots rang out. 1, 2, 3, shattering the glass doors we had just walked through. Marcus moved before I could process what was happening. He tackled me to the ground, covering my body with his, and I felt the impact of a bullet hitting his tactical vest. He grunted in pain but didn't stop moving, dragging me behind a concrete pillar while he drew his weapon. "Stay down," he ordered, his voice calm despite the chaos. "Don't move until I tell you." He returned fire. Once. Twice. I heard a scream in the distance, then running footsteps, then sirens approaching. "Are you hurt?" Marcus was crouching over me, running his hands over my arms and legs, checking for injuries. His face was tight with pain. The vest had stopped the bullet, but the impact had clearly done damage. "I'm fine." "You're hurt." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You got shot." The vest caught it. But he was breathing hard, and when I looked closer, I could see blood seeping through a tear in his sleeve. "Okay. Maybe not all of it." The police arrived. Statements were taken. The shooter, a man named Paul Garrett, a former client I had failed to acquit 3 years ago, was found dead from Marcus's return fire. It was over. The stalking, the threats, the fear, all of it was finally over. But I couldn't stop shaking. Later, in my apartment, I insisted on cleaning Marcus's wound myself. It was just a graze, but it was bleeding steadily, and he was too stubborn to go to a hospital. "You could have died," I said, my voice trembling as I pressed gauze to his arm. "You jumped in front of a bullet for me. It's my job. Don't give me that." I looked up at him, tears in my eyes. "You hate me. You have every right to hate me. Why would you risk your life?" "Because I don't hate you." He caught my wrist, stopping my movements. I tried to. God knows I tried. But somewhere in the last 3 weeks, watching you pace at night because you can't sleep, seeing how hard you work to make things right, I realized that hating you was just easier than admitting the truth. What truth? That what I felt was never really hate. His thumb traced circles on my wrist. It was grief. For the life I lost. For the man I could have been. And you were just the easiest place to direct it. Marcus, you made a mistake. A terrible mistake that cost me everything. But you didn't do it out of malice. You did it because you were scared and human and trying to do the right thing. I spent 10 years refusing to see that. I don't want to spend another 10 the same way. He pulled me toward him, and I went willingly, my forehead resting against his. We were both breathing hard, both trembling on the edge of something neither of us had expected. "This is insane," I whispered. "You should hate me. Everything about this is wrong. Everything about us has been wrong from the start." His lips brushed mine, light as a question. "Maybe it's time to start getting something right." He kissed me, or I kissed him. I wasn't sure who moved first. All I knew was that his arms were around me, and his mouth was on mine, and 10 years of guilt and anger and impossible circumstances were melting away into something that felt terrifyingly like hope. We didn't fix everything that night. Years of trauma don't disappear with a single kiss. There were hard conversations ahead. Therapy, separately and together. There were days when the guilt overwhelmed me, and days when the memories overwhelmed him. There were moments when it seemed impossible that we could ever build something healthy on such a broken foundation. But we kept trying. Every day we chose to try. He stopped working as my bodyguard. Too many ethical complications, and started his own security consulting firm. I funded a legal clinic for wrongful conviction cases in his mother's name. We built a life together piece by piece, acknowledging the pain of the past without letting it define our future. He proposed a year later. On the anniversary of the day, I opened my door and found him standing there. "You destroyed my life once," he said, down on one knee with a ring that glinted in the light. "I think it's only fair you help me build a new one. What do you say?" Yes. I was laughing and crying at the same time. Yes. 1,000 times, yes. We were married 6 months later in a small ceremony. Neither of us wanted anything elaborate. We'd both had enough drama to last a lifetime. When people ask how we met, we look at each other and smile. It's a long story, I usually say. She ruined my life, he adds, pulling me close. And then, she saved it. I testified against him 10 years ago. I sent an innocent man to prison and destroyed everything he had. He became my bodyguard. He saved my life. And somehow, impossibly, we saved each other.